her explain, but she's singing a piece by a musician who I will go on to talk about, but who's really very fundamentally important to this project as a whole. So I'm going to ask Dave to come. See, you're not going to be totally bored by me all the time talking, so Dave's going to come and sing something. I feel quite find it quite difficult to carry on. That was very nice. So what Tej sang ostensibly comes from the Ard Granth, which is the sacred scriptures of the Sikhs. And being brought up in Birmingham, this middle of England, listening to this music, to Sikh sacred music, in the temple, like every week, when my parents would drag me, I didn't want to go. I was brought up listening to live music, live harmonium and tabla. So it was very much part of my everyday tradition, our everyday tradition, if you're from that background. And my interest in music I didn't connect my later interest in music, my later intellectual interest in music, with this childhood engagement or childhood or audio oral training, if you like, which afterwards I realised what it was. And so in the 90s, a group of us wrote this book, Disorienting Rhythms, which is about diasporic youth culture. It was about Bhangra music, what we know as kind of public Asian music, if you like, even today. And this is also a kind of narrative about how you get old, I suppose. So if I was going to carry on writing about Bhangra music, because it has British Asian music or Asian music, I would I would talk about these guys, who are, if any of you know, on the right is this artist called Superwoman, who's a YouTube megastar. You can tell how much of this comes from my daughters, it's true. 15-year-olds are very helpful. And on the left is this guy called Humble the Poet. And so that music that we wrote about in the 90s, it has kind of carried on. It's spawned different kinds and different forms. It's gone into YouTube. So it's not like it kind of went away, which we thought it might do actually at that time. We didn't really appreciate how youth cultures reproduce themselves. But given that I'm not kind of that age where I might be able to sort of wear a pair of glasses like that, or not in any serious way, and given that we went on to this fieldwork, we left England in 2008, myself, Tej and kids, and we went to India, we went to South Asia. And we spent 2 years working in Punjab across the borders, across India and Pakistan. And as sort of Tej said, I was witness really to her learning about music, but also to the ways in which music was so important in the sacred traditions across the divides that we normally put in terms of Hindu, Muslim and Sikh. And the divides, if you like, have become classifications. So Sikh music is known as Kirtan, Muslim music is Qawwali, and Hindu music is Targhi. So there are these distinctions or these classifications have come about. And for me, when I first started meeting musicians or started talking to musicians, a lot of them use this word classical to describe their music. And I got really confused because for me, classical music was all about orchestras, it was all about violins, about kind of grand Beethoven, Bach, all of those people. Having been brought up in Birmingham, I was subjected to this at school. And so I got really kind of curious about this issue and this question. Is that why are these guys using this word classical? What does it mean to them? What does it kind of mean more generally? And so the book, really, the first couple of chapters in the book, really are an exploration of that issue. It's thinking about the question of classicization, like what becomes classical? How does something get made into classical or made into classicalness? And what I found is that actually this coincides with the time when religious identities and religious boundaries are getting fixed as well in India, in South Asia, in British colonial India. And so I tried to bring these two things together. And this is why the book is about, it's called Sacred and Secular Music, basically, because I'm trying to think about the ways in which music got related to religious identity. And that's a pretty succinct summary of 2 really big chapters with lots of literature in them, and you know, people who wouldn't be interested, like, they're pretty boring, I think his writer tells me. Before he goes to sleep, to send himself to sleep, he reads a few pages. So, but the argument that I'm making kind of is really why the book is called The Post-Colonial Approach, because I'm interested in the ways in which the idea of classical here gets translated into classical in South Asia, in colonial modernity. So that's the kind of theory part of the book, and that's just, you have to pay back for hearing the great music you're hearing, guys. So none of this falling to sleep or saying, oh God, is he going to, especially you in the corner, don't think, oh God, he's going to witter on as he does in his lectures normally. And all of this started, so in a kind of more sort of, perhaps in a more kind of narrative mode, all of this started because of this chap here, who at a concert in 2008, when he just moved to Lahore, when he was performing, he used a mixture of the opening lines of the Ad Granth, which is Ikunkar, Satnam, Kal Purukh, and in his singing, at the end of each of these lines, he said the word Allah. So he was doing what technically you might want to call intertextuality, but I would want to say he was playing to the audience in the 21st century in Lahore, because he knew that his audience wouldn't understand what he was singing, so he then translated it for them. And when we heard this in 2008, our daughters were messing around and causing all sorts of trouble. They were utterly bored at the conference. Yet when they heard these lines, they suddenly, their ears pricked up and they thought, what's going on here? And that's actually what happened to us as well. And so I then I found this guy, started talking to him, they started learning Kirtan from him, and we found out that he came from this tradition called the Rababi tradition. And this tradition was not something I knew about before going to Pakistan and meeting this guy. It was a completely new experience, really. And his name was Ghulam Muhammad Jones. He was ostensibly a Shia. Like, if you asked him what his religious identity was, he would say he was a Shia Muslim. Yet his family, for 10 generations, had been playing Sikh sacred music very closely to the Sikh gurus and at the sort of main sacred site for music at Hari Mandir. And we basically got very close to this guy, and it was him who opened up this world, if you like, this musical world, in which across these traditions you find overlaps between musicians, that musicians themselves tend to be very secular about who they play for, and their knowledge systems are cut across the boundaries that we make in terms of sacred texts, right? So someone like him will know the Quran, they'll know the Granth, they'll know the Gita, they'll know from all of these texts. And him in particular can interpret from all of these texts because he's quite an amazing character. So the plug is that there is a CD for sale. So those of you who want to hear more of his music, having heard a little clip from Page, you can go and, yeah, you have to buy something when you come to a book launch. You can't buy the book because unfortunately it's one of these hardback books, and I wouldn't want anyone to be ripped off by the publishers, but you can certainly get hold of the CD. And so this intertextuality, if you like, that he was playing with, it opened up the kind of world of music. And in a sense, I mean, I'm talking about ghosts and haunting, and really it's partly because this tradition has died out. It's pretty much like he's the last person in Pakistan really who has this knowledge to express it publicly. And the kinds of intertextual knowledge that he had has also died out in India, because in East Punjab there are no longer Muslims who can relate in this way. And so the Rababi tradition, if you like, is the way in which I then talk about music in the rest of the book. Because I look at each of these traditions, I look at Qawwali, I look at Kirtan, and I look at Dharmic Geet, and I look at the ways in which they come out of a general pattern of music, and then they become these very specific sort of regimes of music, if you want to use that language, or they become sort of particularly known by that. So you get this association that I've kind of made here, where Muslims do Qawwali, Sikhs do Kirtan, and Hindus do Dharmakit. And this process happens through the 20th century. So it doesn't just happen when India and Pakistan are formed, even though it's kind of finalized then. This process starts at the beginning of the 20th century, when musicians are being asked, like, you can't play here, or they're being told you can't play here anymore because you are a Muslim, or you can't play here anymore because you're a Hindu. So there's a disaggregation that's been taking place, and that's taking place, of course, across the social in India and Pakistan at that time. This process is only accelerated in the post-colonial state. So when India and Pakistan formed, they really go to town at making sure people fit into little boxes or labels as well. So I've said that, you know, this, in a sense, Babaji, as we call him, Ghulam Muhammad Janat, is a relic. But because of the wonders of YouTube, where is she? You know, you can get access to this music, and so the book is accompanied by a website in which I've put musical clips. And this guy here, Tufail Niazi, who kind of finishes the book in some sense, or closes the chapters on music. He's a kind of example again of he's another example of someone who crosses boundaries and borders in his music and in his own biography. So he starts off playing in a gurdwara, he then goes and plays for a Gaushala group, which is basically to protect the sacred cow, so he's singing along with them. And then after partition, when he's in Pakistan, he becomes known as the folk singer of Pakistan. He has his own kind of TV program, etc., etc. And then interestingly enough, in the mid-80s, he goes to India and he's awarded the best classical singer of the year. So the classifications and the categories and the categorizations, they unfold and unpack in musician biographies. And in the book again, I kind of look for these kinds of musicians and I talk about their lives just to show this unpacking and ways in which things kind of don't stay sort of so bounded within music itself. So alright, so having done all of the kind of, you know, it does feel like a lecture I give you guys. Having done all the sort of, the kind of, right, what's positive about this, of course, you know, there's still, it's not that everything's fluid, there are still really important boundaries that underpin this. So, of course, gender is really important. All the musicians that I interacted with who may be of this kind of ilk were men. And so while Rababis may be recognised in the 1980s, in interviews with Baijan, he would say that our women don't sing, even though it's those women who carried on the musical tradition in the houses when they had nowhere in public to sing, right? So when Rababis in 1947 moved to Pakistan and they had nowhere to sing this music anymore, it's only in the household, it's only there that things are preserved and things continue. And of course, and this is total lecture mode, there's also the issue of caste carries on, that these guys are still all, their status is still seen as low. And that even one of the big factors for them to become associated with a religious tradition was to try and raise their status in some way, to move away from being low status. But regardless of that linkage, their status still remains low. So while I'm terribly romantic about these musicians, no, you know, I'm not going to I'm not going to deny that. You know, I'm completely romantic about them. I also appreciate where the kind of limits and the boundaries of the work they do in the world is. And that's me. Good. He says. So I'm going to end the story with coming back to England in 2010 and the wonderful weather of Manchester and all of my great friends who are sat here being so warm and wonderful towards me, but yes, not that great. Back in Manchester, not enough music. And then just by great fortune, we met Manjeet and we met Rajveer. And in a sense, Manjeet and Rajveer both embody this musical tradition, even though both of them were born in Britain, but both of them have learned their musical music in the diaspora, if you like. And so today is as much about them keeping this spirit alive here and helping us keep this spirit alive, and helping me tremendously with the music and the book, and with great generosity. Very warm, heartfelt thanks to you guys. And now I'm going to invite, in fact, Rajveer to come and perform for us. Once Rajveer and Alba have performed, we'll have time for questions and answers. What we wanted to do is, again, because I didn't want to just have it re-talking, we'll have a question and answers with the musicians as well as with James as well. So
I would like to congratulate Professor Rimmer on finishing his book. It was a lot of fun to work with again. I think so much. To my left, I have my wonderful friend Alba on the guitar. And it's nice that we do this together because she is the inspiration behind the flute and the guitar coming together. She's the one who was when I started to form my own music in my head. The first song I'm going to play for you is Alif Allah by Sultan Bahu. Enjoy. by me and Hunt Bush. You can see on the screen there. And this is a poem that we actually translated from Punjabi. Yeah. You can get more volume on the guitar, please, and turn my feet down, because
अव्वल हम खुदा दा विद करिए, अव्वल हम खुदा दा विद करिए, इश्क कीता सो जग दा मोड़ मियां। अव्वल हम खुदा दा विद करिए, इश्क कीता सो जग दा मोड़ मियां। पहला आप ही रब ने इश्क कीता।
Yes, I don't know if anybody, I know I was in my presentation, but yes, anybody had any questions or just comments or clarifications about what you heard, or for Rajvir about his inspirations, all of that stuff, yeah, shout out here.
So, this beautiful and soulful music, is it based on the poetry or interpretation?
Yeah, sure. That is. So when I was quite young, I went to listen to Qawwali music, or devotional music, that's its name, and the Muslim mystic music. And so all the tunes that we play today are folklore tunes of the poetry that these poets have read. So yeah, I grew up listening to these songs, and then we rewrote them and we played them our own way, but the melodies are quite the same.
Yeah, if you know the folk tunes, you would have heard those in there. So they come from those all those tunes are associated with those poets.
In the beginning, you used the word Murabbi tradition. Is that something which, the origin of the Murabbi? Is it the instrumental now? Or is
Yeah, it's from the instrument. So the rabab is it's a plectrum, it's a string instrument from Afghanistan, Central Asia. But when it came into sort of Punjab, the people who played that get associated with Guru Nanak, and they call themselves Rababis. And partly this association is a way of escaping from their low status. It's really important that that by associating with these figures, musician status goes up. So the Rababis then become communities, etc. And I use the term because actually a lot of the Qawwalis are Rababis, basically, who then become Qawwalis in the 20th century. So even though the Qawwals will say, oh, we're all from the Nizam-uddin Awliya, we all trace our tradition to the 10th century, actually now most of them, in Punjab at least, all come out of this tradition. Like Mr. Fateh Khan actually comes out of this tradition. Not that, they don't say, the relationships there. Okay.
This is a question which it's going to be hard to pose, but you've mentioned status several times, and particularly lower status. Was some of the music actually a protest of the particular positions? I mean, we've talked about it in terms of poetry and other kinds of things, but was that part of this kind of tradition in any way?
So in my fully romantic mood, of course, yes. And this is our revolutionary vanguard, of course. But in my kind of maybe more sanguine moment, I think the poets and these poets in particular, and Nanak and these other poets, are rebellious poets, if you like. They rebel against the social structure. Yeah, so yes, I think the poetry is rebellious. And some of the musicians will be part of that rebellion, but generally it's not. I don't think it's a rebellion. I don't think it's rebelliousness in itself. It's like associated with a rebellious tradition, if you like. So all of these poets you would call their poetry is rebelling against both the orthodoxy of the Muslim orthodoxy, if you want to use that term, and the caste system, right? So they are very like, which is maybe the Indic orthodoxy, the Brahminic orthodoxy. So all these poets are very revolutionary in that way, but our musicians revolutionary while earn your living as well. So it's like, so a lot of this music doesn't get played so much in contemporary India or Pakistan because it's not seen as, commercial. It's been commodified, it's not very commercial in that way, especially what some of the things it does say. So I wish I could be more romantic.
Off the back of that, what's the future of the music?
Wow, what a good guy. Asking hard questions. You always ask hard questions. So, again, there's two ways of answering that. I'm going to let Raju answer in a minute. But in my romantic mood, so then the music, of course, this music can't die. societies in which they operate are still not in a good way. There's still all the problems that these guys identify. So, and then in a non-so-romantic way, well, you know, yeah, no, it's not so healthy, I suppose. Yeah, but in terms of people who take this stuff seriously, it's a very, you know, it's a small group of people. Actually, my asked me last night, how do you know these amazing musicians and how do you know these amazing people? And I said, actually, it's a small world of these amazing musicians. They attract and you attract people. But I mean, you should make music. What do you do as a musician? It's like, very cool.
I think I'm just lucky to get this music young, because I'm a lot of you know, people of my generation, from my background, British Asians really don't have any idea what stuff is, because it is it's very deep. Just the language is very deep, the message is very deep. In the future, I think it's something that will never die, because it has a certain power to it, which will always resonate, even from far into the future.
We have literally shown a tradition and history of the Punjabis largely consumed through music. I see in President Nixon when we really get involved fully with this. Who would you say is the Shakespeare of Punjab when we go as far as President Nixon?
Yeah, no doubt he's a Shakespeare. No, there's no, hands down, he's a Shakespeare. I mean, we've been reading Gabe, myself and Shona, and we've taken 2 years so far, 2.5 years, and we're only 1/3 of the way through. You know, so that's why, you know, it's a big one. And it's because it's hard, it's difficult, it's very dense. It's an end.
Just maybe other things. You've mentioned quite fantastic names of all the poets, like last week with Dickens. Just other things. Have you also read or gone through Baba Buddha Shah's poetry or his?
Yes, well, I think that poetry is, you can't perform that in public, it's too dangerous. People might start dancing, things might, the roof might come down. So we can't, you know, Buddha Shah requires special protection, you know, before you can read his poetry. How would you perform Buddha Shah without protection?
But Buddha Shah's different, so I know, he's much more rustic, right? And it's very rhythmical. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the book I talk about Buddha Shah. Yeah, of course, yeah.
In the book.
I think, yeah, in the book as well. We were trying to perform stuff which is in relation, but in the book, of course, I talk about Buddha Shah.
My main question was about the book.
But the thing, why I don't focus on Buddha Shah is everyone focuses on him, because he's seen as the big heterodox mentor. These guys are not seen that way. They're being folded into a certain way of thinking about music and religion. Whereas Buddha Shah, no one can touch. Like I said, he's a kind of, yeah, so in a way it's avoiding that. That's such an overburdened character. All this.
Yeah, and just to add as well, because, you know, Wali Shah writes about the story of Hiranja, as you can see in the picture on the left, and Hiranja plays the flute. So that's why I decided